I would consider bicycle frame building a pretty niche skill set. Conceptualizing a bike, designing it in CAD, and then having the wherewithal to actually cut and weld tubes together. It's a pretty esoteric mix of art and engineering. Seeing all these amazing hand-built bikes here at the Made Bike Show in Portland though, kind of makes you wonder what actually goes into the design and manufacture of a custom bike frame. In this video, I'm asking some of the world's top custom frame builders about their design process and if they have any tips for beginner frame builders. So how long have you been building your own frames?
About 22 years.
22 years.
I think this is like 12 or 13 years, something like that.
So I'm finishing up my 5th year.
Well, I'm actually celebrating the 210th anniversary of the company.
Okay.
I measure it in dog years. So 30 years
30
in
years.
human years.
Got it.
I've been doing it seriously for about 2 years now.
Okay. If you're a new frame builder looking to get into it, where do you start? Are you learning how to weld first, or are you learning the CAD program first, or what?
Either or, I would say, but best thing you can do is find a mentor, try to make friends with them, and just pester them.
My biggest hand up was definitely James Bleakley, Black Sheep Bikes.
Okay.
He had me in the shop. I didn't learn how to weld or anything from him, but he's very generous with all the information, and I just was very astute and swept the floors and kind of just absorbed as much as I could from James.
Gotcha.
And I would say that's a good in. Frame building schools are definitely like a direct way as well.
Yeah, obviously.
So that, there's a lot of ways to start.
Yeah, I took a course at UBI in Ashland, Oregon. I did their steel TIG frame building course.
Okay.
And I fell in love with it, really. Came back to Colorado, started working for a steel mountain bike company for a few years, and then transitioned to titanium for another few years. And now I'm doing both of those frame materials as my own brand.
Yeah, the classes that I give are 8.5 days. The process is the same process that I would use, to make one of my bikes.
Right.
There's a lot of value as far as time, right? So we're condensing all those 210 years into 8.5 days.
Right. Yeah. And then with the class, you're getting direct feedback from an instructor.
Right. And then basically somebody taking the class, they finish with the knowledge, the experience, and a frame.
What's the first step? Where do you go first? If you can't go and take a week-long class somewhere, where do you start?
So, one, Custom Frame Forum. I host that.
Okay.
But that's a bias. I would say you have to look at frame building from two aspects. There's building frames and there's the business of frame building. And I feel like, unfortunately, they've been tied together. I think the mistake is if you think frame building is a business, then you start acquiring $20,000 of tooling, you're trying to be efficient, but then I spend very little time building frames. A lot of it is business decisions, marketing, photographing bikes, talking to people, talking to customers, go on these stupid trade shows.
I think my recommendation for anyone that would be listening would be BikeCAD. That's a super user-friendly program, and it spits out your drawings and everything you need.
Okay.
Myself, I came from an engineering background. I'd say engineering loosely. I'm kind of a snowboard bum, but I was a mechanical engineer, so I learned CAD.
Okay.
And I use Pro-E to model up my stuff, but I don't recommend that to anyone.
Okay.
Just because the BikeCAD and everything's very accessible.
Yeah. Pro-E's a little overkill, I'd say.
It's stupid. But that's it. It's kind of my curse. That's what I learned in
Gotcha.
school. So it's all right.
I started off in the engineering industry, designing hydroponic systems, but I worked at a nonprofit. We did more educational stuff. I would say when I was first starting out, it was all about learning the mechanics of how you make the frame, and it was less about the geo and design, especially since I was working for other companies. So it was basically understanding, how you cut a tube, what a good miter is, how the tube should fit together. And then the longer I was doing it, the more I started to understand frame geometry and design and what that would feel like. Yeah, so just hands-on experience to gain that foundational knowledge. And then along the way, I met Daniel Yang at Yang Manufacturing, and he essentially sat down and taught me Fusion 360. And so taught me how to model the things in my head in 3D so I can visualize better how to go about actually fabricating the ideas I was having and what it would look like in the end.
So before that, you were using 2D, like BikeCAD?
Yeah, before it was 2D, BikeCAD, even like drawing out on paper, 2D. But yeah, having that third dimension is pretty, it's monumental, especially like when you're working with rear triangle, because like your rear triangle is lots of stuff going on.
Right.
And it's a super important part of your bike because you have a lot of clearances to deal with tires and cranks and brakes and all of that.
Well, and stuff like this top tube, you don't see that in 2D, right? You have to look at it from the third dimension to conceptualize
You need that third dimension to understand how those bends are going to work, how they're going to lay, exactly where you're going to have to start them to kind of get that aesthetic that you're aiming for.
If you could go back 22 years and give yourself some advice, what would you say?
Geez, I'd probably have to think about that for a little while. I'd say approach slowly at first. It can be kind of a ruthless, unforgiving path at times. So make sure that your soul is totally dedicated to it is the best advice I have.
That's good advice.
I guess if I had any advice for new builders, it's just like low overhead. If your first move is a nice fancy jig, is 2 Bridgeports, blah, 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 all of a sudden you've gotten yourself some overhead, you have something to clear. And so I really think just starting simply is like the way to go. And then for me, that was kind of a blessing for me, is like, oh, I don't have to like immediately keep up with this business. I can figure out the craft, take some years to make some mistakes.
I guess start small. Don't go out and buy like $30,000 in tools and mills and all kinds of stuff like that.
Right.
Or maybe, like you said, find somebody who already has a space and work an arrangement to get a little bit of time in their space to work on the stuff. And then figure out if you like it. There's nothing easy about bikes. It's a lot of hard work in every aspect.
Right.
You have to be up for that challenge and really passionate and want it.
What kind of advice would you give to someone who's just wanting to start the process?
I would say...
I know, sorry. It's tough.
No, it's okay. I mean, honestly, I would just jump into it, and I would, try and find a builder in your area or like a larger manufacturer in your area and just get hands-on experience and just kind of jump in and see if you like it, see if it like meshes well with, your person and how you kind of operate in the world, and talk to people, reach out to people, like ask questions and kind of see how they went about it. What their learning experience was in the beginning.
What I heard a lot of so far was like find a mentor, someone who's been doing it a while who can kind of coach you through it.
Yeah. There is a lot of value in finding a mentor. I personally like the idea of kind of a group learning, maybe not having one very specific person to turn to, but a group of people, like a community that you can turn to, and ask questions and just get that variation in experience.
Don't be afraid to ask for help, because no one knows everything.
Right.
Yeah. So if you're willing to work with other people and ask for help, then you can overcome deficiencies and learn.
Cool. Appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, well, there you have it. Some pretty solid tips and advice from some of the world's best frame builders. If you found this video interesting, definitely check out the playlist linked down in the description for all the content that we created here at Made 2024. Thanks again for watching, and thanks for subscribing to the channel. If you haven't already, we'll see you next time.